So I'm Thomas Kula. I'm the head of value engineering here at Instruqt, and I'm joined today by Brandi Coleman, who's the director of America's enterprise sales engineering at BMC, and she's going to be talking about scaling hands-on at BMC. But before I turn it over to Brandi, I just want to go over what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to talk about the before, catalyst, and scale, and kind of what that journey looked like. And we'll have a live demo and Q&A at the end. I'm going to start talking about the before state, where we had, BMC had just one workshop, and what kept breaking. Talk about the pivot, why BMC brought in Instruqt, and how it was getting that first lab going live. Talk about scaling from one lab to over 25, and from being able to only address 25 attendees to over 400. We'll talk about the pipeline impact, how being able to accelerate, help BMC reach practitioners, tied labs to leads, and what marketing now sees. We'll go through a live demo of the Instruqt Play experience that BMC has built, and we'll finish with a Q&A at the end. And so with that, Brandi, thank you for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Thomas, and thanks, Iggy Instruqt for the intro and kicking us off there as well. So just to quickly introduce myself to everyone that's on the line, my name is Brandi Coleman. I am the director of America's sales engineering for enterprise. This year, I've been with BMC for 7 years, going on 7 years now. And in my time at BMC, I've been part of a motion that we've developed around hands-on workshops. At first, we had one workshop that was focused on our Control M product. Specifically, 5 years ago, we realized that with Control M being an enterprise orchestration solution that had a variety of different use cases that our customers found value in across a variety of different verticals, we wanted to find a way for the practitioner to be able to realize the value or be able to understand how Control M can add value to their business without impacting their production, non-production, or sandbox environment. So how can we create an experience where either current users or new users can understand how Control M can add value to their business in a way that's lightweight, easily consumable, in a way that we can repeat that motion across different customers. So 5 years ago, 2 years into BMC, I was part of the team that developed that first workshop. We called it a tech day. And that tech day had a lot of impact. We started to see usage of our automation API and jobs as code grow. Those workshops impacted deals. But as time went on, we realized that we wanted to have different types of workshops that we could offer to our customers. We wanted to be able to scale to different use cases. We wanted to be able to touch different infrastructures. Our Control M portfolio is very vast. We have a lot of different integration capabilities. So we wanted to be able to show the breadth and depth of our integration portfolio as well. And last fiscal year, we kind of came to an inflection point where we said, this one workshop that we have is great, it's having impact, but we're ready to scale, we're ready to do more, but we realize that there are things kind of preventing us from doing more. So we sought out to evaluate different products that were in the market to support us in this motion. And we were introduced to Instruqt. And that's why we're here today to kind of talk through our journey of how we started, how we engaged with Instruqt and developed a business plan that would have impact for BMC, and then how we have leveraged Instruqt today and the value that we have realized. In the chat, I do have my colleague, Adam Nieves. Adam Nieves is the lead for Instruqt at he's a principal solution engineer at BMC, but he's leading the Instruqt adoption at BMC as well. So he's helping in the chat. If you have any questions, he's going to help me answer those via chat, as well as we'll pull some questions forward to answer live as well. So to kind of start here from that introduction, these are the three kind of points where we saw that inflection point where we realized we were ready to scale, but these things were keeping us from that scale, and that's why we invested in Instruqt. So first, because of the way that we managed our workshop environment, our sales engineers were spending more time managing the backend infrastructure supporting that workshop than spending time on creating new content. Because of that, we had that one workshop that was available and having impact, but it was just one use case that we saw across all of our customers. Last fiscal year, we did expand that to a second use case, but we realized that we needed to exponentially increase the amount of use cases that we were able to show our customers. We also were limited by the amount of attendees we could have in one session. So we had about a cap of 20 to 25 attendees at one time in one session. And then lastly, because we had a manual delivery, there was no automated way to tie workshop engagement and the metrics and usage of users or prospects while they're doing the workshop to pipeline. So these three drivers are what led us to Instruqt and led us to the conversation that we're having today.
And Brandi, it really sounds like when you started out, your SEs were spending more time being kind of SREs and maintaining, kind of your infrastructure than they were being content creators and actually getting out in front of your customers. Is that, one of the things that you saw?
Yeah, definitely. We realized that by spending that time on the infrastructure, we just weren't able to create the optionality that we wanted to be able to meet the demand and interest of our prospects and our customers. So I would definitely say that was the current state at the time, or the before state, sorry.
Yeah, of course.
All right, so kind of digging into that a little bit, this is another version or another look at how we were able to drive business value for Instruqt. One great added value of the Instruqt team was their support of us during developing the business value or business plan for BMC. So in terms of how Instruqt, or how the one workshop that we had became a launching point for Instruqt, we kind of drilled down into different costs that we saw kind of impacting our business. So the cost of time that our SEs were spending on managing the infrastructure versus spending on creating new content. And you'll see kind of the impact of that time that we've gotten back and how we have exponentially more labs available to service our customers today. The cost of infrastructure, we were hosting our workshop in our internal cloud and also on our public cloud providers. So all of that cost fell on us. And shifting over to Instruqt manages all of that back-end cost and infrastructure for us. So not only are we able to kind of offset that cost, but we're also able to have a lot more optionality with the type of infrastructure that we can pull in to our different tracks or to our different workshops. One of the workshops that I'll highlight today is a control M and Kubernetes workshop where we're able to deploy very quickly a full Kubernetes stack that allows us to deploy control M agents and connect to the control M environment and run workloads. And all of that is managed in the backend by Instruqt, and we don't have to worry about it. We can just create really stellar workshops to deliver to our customers. And then lastly is the cost of the limited reach. The demand was high. We were doing tech days all the time, but we were only limited to 25 attendees at a time. And we wanted to be able to allow any customer or any attendee or any prospect that was interested in that use case to come to that session versus having to cap it at a certain amount of attendees. So these were three of the main cost drivers that we used to develop that case.
Yeah, and it seems like you really saw that, you had the potential, you had the opportunity there. What you could get out in front of customers was helping, but you just had this kind of constant drag of these ongoing costs that were keeping you from reaching the full impact that you knew that you could do with your material.
Mm-hmm. Yep, definitely. All right. So why did BMC buy Instruqt? So I kind of set the stage for the before, and the before leads into exactly what Instruqt does, and we'll mention some kind of proof points a little bit later. But one value add that we've seen immediately from Instruqt is being able to scale our reach, of being able to have a more impactful workshop where instead of doing 10 workshops at 25 attendees each, we can have one workshop that's hosted in a webinar format where we can touch 400 customers at a time. And we've hosted workshops like that in the past. We have We've done 3 workshops in our hands-on webinar series where we've had no less than 200 attendees in that session, interacting with Instruqt, interacting with Control M, realizing the value of the use cases, and working along with us to eventually complete the workshop, understand value, and then those engagements turn into leads that are then worked downstream as well. So the fact that we were able to scale to that number and have the interactions with those amount of customers on just one engagement, and the fact that every customer has their own siloed sandbox environment. So we're not dealing with shared environments where we're worried about data being shared or leaked between people. Everybody has their own sandbox. It's secure, it's one-to-one, and that way we're able to scale across a variety of different customers, personas, et cetera. So being able to do that without the overhead on BMC has added a lot of value for us, and is going to continue to drive the innovation that we want, which is creating more use cases to be able to have that type of impact. Speaking of innovation, the optionality that Instruqt provides with their inspiration library and also with the container images that you're able to pull into the tracks is really, really, really helpful. We're able to touch any cloud provider that we want. All types of virtual machines are provided out of the box. We're able to create our own containers. And doing this allows us not only to show the power of Control M, because Control M can interact with all of these different infrastructure systems and applications, but it also allows us to be able to create templates that are easily consumed to create more content. So we have sandbox presets are what they're called, where there's a sandbox preset that an SE created that another SE can leverage to create their own version of a track building on that foundation. So that allows us to have optionality and portability across the different workshops that we have. And then lastly, I kind of mentioned it on the previous slide, but interacting with the Instruqt team has been really, really helpful and impactful across this journey, not just the pre-sales aspect of it, but also post-sale, working with the customer success team, the value team, as well as the pre-sale team, just to understand how BMC can get the most impact out of Instruqt, and just ensuring that we are using it to its full capacity during the life cycle of our partnership with Instruqt. So that was also something that we found very valuable, and why we made the investment.
And I think that last point is, in a lot of times, is overlooked, and people don't think about it, because as tech people, we tend to focus on what are the platform capabilities, what are the things that I can do with this, but being able to show, here is the impact that this will have. We're all businesses here. We want our customers to be successful, and we want to be successful with their help. And so being able to show, hey, this is the value that we're getting out of being able to do these things. It's not just the technical capabilities, but that communicating how this impacts our bottom line is an important thing to do. And it's important for all of our customers to understand, and help your management understand, this is the impact that we're bringing to our business by leveraging this platform.
Yeah, definitely. I think another thing that I didn't mention, but just that partnership, it removes roadblocks very easily. I'd like to highlight the support team at Instruqt, and just the ability of Adam and the other sales engineers that are creating content to very quickly ask a question or get support, and within minutes get feedback, get walkthroughs that help us get those roadblocks out of the way. Having that type of relationship has also had a lot of impact, and been something that we've really appreciated as well.
Of course.
All right, so now we get into a little bit of the good stuff, right? So we've talked about kind of the before state, and what the required capabilities, or what we looked for in a solution, and now we'll talk about kind of where we are today. So as we mentioned, right, we had that one workshop, or that one workshop offering for those 5 years. Today, in less than a year of leveraging the Instruqt platform, we have grown that optionality to over 25 labs. And the creation of those 25 labs is really solely with a small group of sales engineers. So we're not saying that you need a team of 100 to create 25. We pretty much have the same footprint that was managing the one workshop, invested in creating the 25 different workshops that we have, and the ability to have these 25 workshops, but have those workshops be persona based, have them touch different aspects of the Control-M portfolio, like MFT or data pipeline orchestration, Control-M's integration to containers in Kubernetes, Control-M's AI capabilities, a bunch of different features that we want to highlight and want our customers to be able to interact with. We're able to have that in our current portfolio, and we're looking to continue to increase and invest in our lab portfolio, but we want to do it in a way that aligns to our overall strategy and has the most impact for our customers. So really excited to see this number continue to grow and to see all of the different things that we can do with Control and be able to be easily consumed and interacted with our customers.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. Like it going from one, the same team that was previously only able to manage that one workshop to over 25 labs seems like a really impactful force multiplier there. Did you see any hesitation or learning curve from the team in building content in Instruqt?
I would say the Instruqt platform is very intuitive. The documentation is very easy to use, but the people that are building the content are also technologists. So there are sales engineers that are familiar with deploying containers and writing code and modifying markdown files. So that expertise went very nicely with the content creation aspect of Instruqt as well. So once we kind of created a operating rhythm or a procedure around what content creation looks like, actually interacting with Instruqt was not very hard. There were some enablement sessions that we had, and we partnered with the Instruqt team to have those enablement sessions. We did some internal enablement where we hosted smaller Instruqt workshops internally to get people familiar with using it. So we had kind of internal enablement to increase the awareness and understanding of Instruqt, but being technologists and being sales engineers, creating the content is definitely kind of second nature, because that's what we do on a day-to-day basis with proof of concepts or proof of value and demo creation as well.
And that actually might lead into a good question we just got. Outside of workshop delivery, where else within the pre-sales engagement are you seeing the value of the platform and the content you've built on it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that Instruqt can add value. So delivering workshops to our customers, definitely on a one-to-one basis. A customer has a proof of concept or an aspect that they want kind of technical validation on, providing a content either instructor-led, where you have somebody like Adam Nieves getting on with the customer and walking them through that workshop, or providing it in a self-paced version where Adam provides the link and that customer can consume it on his or her own time. The fact that the instructions and the value narrative and the videos are all embedded within Instruqt allows that optionality that we find a lot of value in. It also can be used as a proof of concept tool. If you have different use cases, some of them can be done with Instruqt, some of them can be done in a live environment, and that can kind of scale down the time it takes to do a proof of concept or proof of value. It can be used as a demand gen tool, and something that we'll highlight later is the way that we're leveraging Instruqt for our hands-on webinar series. So we're looking at key technologies or technologies of interest like AI, and we're putting on webinars where we're able to walk customers through the AI capabilities within Control-M in a way where they get that hands-on experience as well. It could also be used for education use cases as well. It could be used in customer success for adoption. So just think of any option where a customer or a prospect or a user putting their hands on the solution would add value to that motion, and it would be a perfect fit for Instruqt.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about some of those use cases later on, but I think the one that's really interesting and is the kind of shortening those POV or POC life cycles. I didn't mention this at the
Mhm.
beginning. I work at Instruct now, but in a previous job, I was a customer of Instruct, and we saw the same thing where, in a lot of cases, what you needed to go through a POV, 80% of it was common stuff. Everyone wanted to see. They had check boxes they had to check off, and you could really accelerate that by saying, hey, let's go through this standardized material, get through that in an afternoon or something like that. You can check off all of your boxes, and then we could really focus on the stuff that's specific to you. And so even if you can't completely eliminate POVs or POCs, being able to drastically reduce the time it takes to do those by getting the common stuff out of the way quickly is also, I think, a great accelerator.
Right. And then another aspect that I've mentioned is just the ability to scale our reach from 25 attendees to over 400 attendees per webinar. And the value that we've seen in being able to scale to this number is obviously being able to touch a variety of different personas in different verticals or different industries, and also across the globe. In these webinars that we host, we have attendees from every part of the globe, all interacting with Instruqt, all realizing value from Control M in a way that is either self-paced, maybe they're doing the session on their own after because they have access to the link, or walking through that session with the sales engineer that's leading it. So this is kind of the growth that we've seen and the impact that we've seen from these sessions, and all of these personas that attend these sessions and interact with Control M. We're able to turn those into leads. We're able to see who logged in to the Instruqt platform and started interacting with the workshop that we've had for Control M. We're able to see how far they've gotten. If the workshop has 4 labs, the first lab is maybe getting started. The second lab is deploying your first Control M workflow. The third lab is modifying a workflow. We're able to see exactly which stage that person is in, how far they got, and that's going to help us be able to target our follow outreach in a better way because we're able to see how interested that person is in that topic, and it makes the follow-up a lot more impactful as well.
Yeah, so really by having that information available, you weren't just reaching out generically to, say someone who took your track. You could go and say, "Oh, hey, I noticed you got all the way to this point. Are you really interested in that?" Or, you played this particular part of it a couple of times. You need help understanding that part or whatnot. Like, were you able to use that as kind of really targeted feedback and interactions with those folks?
Absolutely. And all of that information is available out of the box with Instruqt. It wasn't something that we had to bolt on to the solution. All of that metric and that telemetry is captured right within the product. It's a very simple, click, and you're able to see exactly who logged in to the workshop, where they are, what percentage they completed, how many times they did the workshop. Maybe they did it a couple of times. And if they share it with another person within their company, we're able to capture that data as well. So having all of that right within the platform is also super helpful.
Excellent.
All right, and then I talked about this a little bit in the previous slide, but just being able to reach a variety of different personas with each workshop or each lab that we're creating. We're trying to start with the end in mind. What type of persona are we trying to target? How would they like to consume or interact with Control M? Because Control M is a tool that is agnostic across different personas. We want to make sure that we're offering that optionality. If it's a data scientist that we're trying to target, how would they want to interact with Control M? Maybe it's via code or via our Python client. If it's a traditional IT operations persona, are they going to want to interact with Control M via the GUI? Having the end in mind and the persona that we're trying to target allows us to create content that's more consumable for that persona. And these are some of the personas that we're seeing interact, give good feedback, and that we're targeting as audience members for the different workshops that we're delivering.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of this reach is facilitated by the fact that you can just send someone a link. They've got a pre-made environment they can just drop in. Before you had, this kind of environment where you could just give this out to people. What would life would look like for each of these practitioners if you wanted to try to talk about BMC and talk about Control M? What kind of hurdles would they have had to gone through to even be able to try the product out if you didn't have this kind of workshop platform?
Yeah, I would just say that it would have to be a scheduled session with them, right? We
Mm-hmm.
would either do on-site workshops or we would do workshops that we scheduled. And while that was a lot of times impactful, being able to send a link and let them do it on their own time, or to be able to share that link, because obviously everybody can't get all in the same room at the same time, right? So you don't want to have to limit yourself, right, to being in the same room. So that self-guided or instructor-led optionality has definitely allowed us to kind of meet the end user, right, meet our customers where they are and give them more options to interact with the workshops or the labs that we're providing to them.
Yeah, and really, giving them a very low friction way of doing that. It's click on this link, here you are.
Yep. No installs, no tampering with their production or sandbox instance. It's all self-contained in a sandbox and makes it a lot easier to consume. 100%.
Yeah, and I think everyone on this call, whoever's been trying to show off a product to an opportunity to a customer, knows that panic you feel when you're in a room full of people and you're trying to get stuff working in an unfamiliar environment.
All right, so now kind of talking about the pipeline, right? So as we have the metrics that we've talked about previously, as we're able to understand who is engaging, when they're engaging, how engaged they are, what that's going to do is that is going to allow us to align better with our marketing arm and allow SEs, PAMs to be able to interact with customers basically in a warm conversation. The customer has already interacted with the product. They have a decent understanding of what they're looking for. They might have used that, done a little bit more research, and now they have targeted questions about what they're looking for and how it can add value to their business. So we're able to speed up that stage of discovery, if you will, because we're providing the product in a lot of ways, or a use case in a lot of ways to be able to understand or meet that customer where they are so that they can realize the value of Control M in the use case or the manner that they're looking to, without even having to pick up the phone and call us, or vice versa. So we've seen a lot of impact on pipeline from these types of engagements, and the types of leads that we're able to generate with interacting with the practitioner that way.
Yeah, and really just tying that engagement back to pipeline is a holy grail for a lot of marketing teams. How did you actually wire that signal up, that signal flow up between your marketing, your SE teams, and what mindset shifts did it require compared to, say, a traditional marketing qualified lead model?
Yeah, so I would say I'm just kind of specifically focusing on our hands-on webinar motion. Traditionally, we would have signals based on if a person registered or if they attended. And that gives us good feedback. It also gives us a good way to engage with that customer. But what Instruqt also adds is a way to tell if they joined the webinar, if they registered for the webinar, if they started the hands-on piece, if they got all the way through the hands-on piece, maybe if they dropped off halfway through. And so that allows for our follow-up to be more targeted. Hey, I realize you started the webinar, started the workshop, but you weren't able to get all the way through. Is there anything I can help you with? That type of data allows us to have a more pointed conversation or follow-up with the end user, and that adds a lot of value. There's also an ability to integrate Instruqt right within different CRM systems, so that information can be fed right back into your lead generation reporting, and things of that nature to be able to make it more automatic. So we're interested in the future in leveraging that as well.
Yeah. So, I think we've seen a larger pattern here, this product-led growth in the age of AI and content saturation. Like people, you're getting barraged, you're just getting inundated with all this new capabilities, all this content, and really people are shifting from wanting to, they no longer want to read about a thing. They don't want a slide deck. They don't want a white paper. They want to try the thing. Like they want to get this really hands-on experience with your product, and that being able to distinguish yourself as a company by being able to easily give your customers and opportunities a way to just really get their hands on and see what the product does versus reading about it or sitting in an hour meeting and you've got an SE or an account exec who's just going through a slide deck and everyone's kind of glazed over, they're tuned out, they're looking at their phones, versus an engaging experience where you, the customer, you, the opportunity, are actually leveraging the product. You're seeing it work. You're seeing it react to what you're doing to it in real time, and being able to do that with low friction and having the ability to have these completely isolated environments. People can go off, they can explore things, they can make mistakes. It's a safe place for them to make a mistake and learn from that mistake. I think must be really impactful. And so with that, we're going to turn and talk about Brandi, what's your new operating model look like?
Yeah, and I would say the first thing is, I kind of hit on it on the persona side slide, is just starting with the end in mind, right? What type of persona, what type of industry, what type of use case, what is that end in mind, is kind of the first step when we're thinking about content creation. We also want to make sure that it aligns to our go-to-market strategy as well. We also want to make sure that there's a content creation process in place. Being developers, systems engineers, software engineers by trade, understanding that Instruqt has the ability to interact or integrate with CI/CD pipelines and GitHub. So building that kind of foundation for seamless content creation, QA, and promotion into production allows for that ease of use. So kind of laying that foundation, having the end in mind, and then how do we bring those things together by leveraging all of the out-of-the-box features that Instruqt provides, kind of gets us to this current state where we have over 25 different labs. We're able to reach an infinite amount of customers per webinar or per workshop. We're able to touch all different types of cloud providers. Our SEs are spending more time on content creation versus spending time on maintaining that infrastructure. And then we have kind of one source of truth, right? One source of truth, one lab that can be delivered by an SE in North America, an SE in EMEA, an SE in APAC. So having that source of truth there, and then being able to feed the engine, if you will, and accelerate our pipeline, accelerate our growth, and accelerate the innovation that our customers are able to see and realize with Control M. Like I mentioned kind of in the introduction, Control M really is a very wide enterprise orchestration solution that can do a lot of different things, but being able to provide those 25 labs that focus on a specific persona and a specific use case allow our users to be able to realize that value and how it relates to them a lot quicker. So I would say that's kind of our operating model.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something that's really important, and I want to, have you maybe go in a little deeper into this or verify that. We talked a lot so far, kind of about the technical capabilities of the platform and the fact that you can operate on multiple clouds, and that this is a low friction kind of experience. You just send someone a link and whatnot. But you hinted at the people and process part of it, coming up with a good workflow for things like maintaining the material, QAing it, promoting it to production and whatnot. Did you find that, just as important as the capabilities of the platform into building, assets that scale?
Yeah, absolutely. Once you have the platform is there, then you have to create the process, right? And that's where Adam Nieves and the team of sales engineers really got together and determined what that process would be. So I think it's very, very, very important when you think about scaling, that process is in place, and it's not always perfect at the beginning, right? There are things that you have to learn, there are things that you have to experience, but that's that partnership that I talked to originally. We were kind of gung-ho on diving in head first because we knew we had the support and the partnership from the Instruqt team to be able to guide us along the way. So we were able to fail fast, learn quick, and really accelerate our delivery of what we can do with these workshops.
Yeah, well, that all sounds really exciting. And I think everyone on the webinar here must be itching to see what's the fruit of your effort and walking through just what a prospect experience looks like.
Yeah, oh, thank you. All right, so I don't know if this is a little blurry for you, but it's definitely a little blurry on my end. Oh, there it goes. It cleared up there. So this workshop that we're showing here is our Control M containerization workshop. So it's a lab that allows our end users to interact with Control M in a Kubernetes environment to be able to deploy Control M agents as containers, run workloads against those agents, and understand how Control M is able to be consumed in that manner. A lot of value that we've seen within Instruqt is what we talked about with the sandbox, where each environment is a sandbox that is dedicated to that person. So this shell that you're seeing here is a Linux VM that is dedicated to this person. They have their own Kubernetes environment. They're able to deploy things, break things, restart things all from within their sandbox without fear of interacting with anyone else. And it's all within one interface. You're not jumping between browser tabs. You're not kind of having to share screens with different people. This is your own screen with instructions on the right that guide you through this process, where you could be doing it on your own, or you could have an instructor kind of walk you through it as well. Another feature that kind of was highlighted in the bottom right was the check feature that we find a lot of value in, where depending on what the workshop or that lab is going through, there's background scripts that are able to validate that that user successfully completed what you intended for them to complete in that challenge before moving forward. So this is another added value of having that kind of self-guided flow where they're able to interact with this on their own time. We've also seen a lot of value of embedding content in these workshops, like PowerPoint slides or demo videos that we have with the different platforms that we use to deploy video content. So this experience, I would say, is more tailored to a developer that wants to kind of interact with Control M in this way. But I just wanted to show this as an option that we have, and we're going to be running this workshop as a webinar here shortly in the next month or two as well. So really excited to deploy this one and have our customers be able to interact with Control M in a containerized manner in a month or so through that webinar.
So it's exciting stuff. One thing, I think might be interesting is, talking about the impact of being able to have, like, say, those check, that check button, have the scripts behind the scenes. Certainly in a room full of 50 people at a conference, being able to have people check their work is great. But for those individual, touch on, you're sending an opportunity, a link, run it on your own. What's the impact of being able to have them verify, hey, I actually successfully did what I did. I can run this check script and I get feedback if I need to do something different. What's the impact of that on people?
It makes it a lot easier. It makes it easier to consume, and maybe a little bit less scary as well, right? I think there's a lot of times where you might accidentally skip a step, like what was happening in that demo recording. There was a step that was missed, a command that wasn't run, and therefore you had that error that popped up that told you to go back and make sure that you completed step 6, for example. So it guides the person through the workshop in a way that they don't get to step 10 before they realize that they missed something. They're able to catch those things earlier and just make sure that they're not running into errors, because we don't want those things to impact the experience or the value that we're trying to deliver with the workshop itself. So those checks really reduce that noise, if you will, and allow us to spend less time troubleshooting and more time focusing on the value that we're trying to allow our customers to uncover with Control M.
And do you find that has a positive impact on their comfort level using your product, to being able to like, oh, I actually like I ran these steps and it checked successfully. Like, you find that your customers are feeling more confident in their understanding of your product because they have the ability to check their work as they're going through that?
Absolutely. It's kind of a pat on the back, right? When you know you did something, you think you did it good, and then you have that kind of check mark at the bottom right that says, no, you went through every step completely and you're exactly kind of at the stage that you need to move forward. It definitely gives you kind of that endorphin run, if you will, to kind of move on to the next one. So it definitely has a good impact.
Excellent. Well, I think we've reached the end of us talking to you. We'll turn it over to folks watching the webinar. If you've got any questions, use that questions button there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We've got a couple already. I'll start with. So Brandi, if someone watching today is sitting on a workshop strategy that doesn't scale, what would be your 30, 60, 90-day plan be to get them from that single workshop to like a real library of material? Where should they start, and kind of what's the biggest trap to avoid?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing is just understanding what problem you have, or what limitation you're experiencing with what you currently have. Understanding what that is, you can have a more targeted or phased approach with solving that gap. I would also focus on when you're creating the content, or when you're trying to come up with a ideation plan to create content, have that end in mind, right? Don't just create content for the sake of creating content. You want everything that you create to have impact. I also think it's really helpful to start small, and pilot different use cases, pilot them internally to test, but also to use as an awareness or education tool internally, so that you're prepared to deliver those to your customers. And just make sure that at every stage you have some metrics that you're able to understand, that you're realizing the value of the investment that you're making in, whether it be at the end of 30 days, you want to have one workshop that you've ran for 25 attendees. At the end of the 60 days, you want to have 5. Kind of phasing that approach out has also had impact for us. And then just having that content creation plan all the way from straw man to workshop or lab that's delivered into production, and a team of champions internally that are going to manage that process and kind of keep the wheel turning internally as well.
Yeah, and I think you raised a really important point about the kind of ramping up, starting slow, start with a specific thing, and then build on top of that experience to really gain that comfort. It's good to have a goal to end at, a goal to strive for and to aim for. Hey, we want to have 25 labs. We want to have these running, so many times a week and have so many participants. But, you really want to, before you go from 1 to 25 labs, go to 2 or 3, and then just build that process up, build that workflow up, and just kind of grow it organically over time. Do you find that much easier than the like, all right, we're just going to do 25 and we're just going to plow through this? Obviously you made that decision to ramp slowly. There must be good reasons why you did that.
Yeah, you don't want to have burnout, right? And you want to be able to have iteratively realize value as well. And you don't want to boil the ocean, right? It's very easy to boil the ocean and try to solve everything at one time. But it's always good when you lead with intention, and lead with that end in mind, and thinking that way will kind of avoid that trap of trying to avoid boiling the ocean.
Yeah. We've got another question. So are all the SEs now using an Instruqt, or are there use cases that aren't supported?
I wouldn't say there's use cases not supported. I would say we do have a backlog. We probably have 3 times as many workshops in our QA environment that we have in production. And I enjoy the backlog because we're able to pick from those and deploy them into production in our phased kind of change management process. So I would say it's internal enablement, it's awareness, but it's also making sure that when an SE has a POV or a POC or a use case, that those are also readily available for them to use. That takes time. but we're moving in that direction where we'll continue to ramp up what we have available in production, so that everybody has access to it. But all of our sales engineering team is added to the platform and can interact with it. And that was very easy to onboard folks as well.
Yeah. And maybe some guidance you can give folks and some tricks that you've learned along the way. How do you prioritize what you want to move? You know, you said you've got 3 times as much stuff in your QA environment as you do in production. How do you prioritize what you want to release to production next?
Yeah, I'd say right now it's a combination of need. So what use case if a customer is asking for it, or there's a use case that we're being asked about for a webinar topic, or there's a go-to-market strategy that we want to align to. So I would say it's based on need, feasibility, availability, kind of all of those things are kind of driving the prioritization of what we move up, because we do have a QA process where we have different users test the track before it's fully deployed. We run internal sessions where we validate it with multiple users before we deploy it. So we're doing that release based on that process.
Well, I want to thank you, Brandi, for being. I think we're ready to wrap up here. Well, Brandi, I want to thank you for being here with us today and showing how you've taken this journey with BMC, moving from 1 lab to over 25, being able to go from 25 participants to 400, basically an unlimited number of participants, and how that has really impacted you and your experiences and helping your customers understand the value of BMC and Control-M.
Absolutely. I was really thankful, right, to be included in this session, to be able to talk about BMC, Control-M, how we're leveraging Instruqt, and then the partnership and the value that we realized from that partnership. My information was definitely on the invitation. So if anybody has any questions for me specifically, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn or reach out. I'm happy to answer questions. We do have hands-on webinars that will be coming out that I'll be reposting on my LinkedIn as well. So if you're interested, please kind of connect with me and stay tuned for those. But thank you for having me, Thomas, and Iggy Instruqt somewhere in the ether in the background. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, well, it was great to have you today. Everyone on the webinar, thank you for taking time out of your day to come and listen to our story. We will have the recording of this. I believe we'll have it out in probably about 24 hours. So if you wanted to review anything or pass it on to someone who wasn't able to make that, please look out for that email. You'll see the link to the video. And if you have any questions about Instruqt platform, you can reach out to us as well. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Thank you.